Hello, this is just going to be a quickly made video which I wanted to do simply because I felt like sharing some of my nostalgia for Fable. So it's not going to be a full-on review where I go into great detail about this and that. It's more just to share memories and thoughts on a game which I really love. But also, in part, this is going to be a kind of video response to a recent video made by a good friend of mine. The Boxing Dashan did a video a few days ago called "This Video Game Just Turned 20 Years Old, Fable Review," which has inspired me to make this video talking about my thoughts and fond memories on this classic, now 20-year-old game. So please do check out Boxing's video and subscribe to his channel if you haven't already, links in the description. He's a cool, chilled out kind of guy with a great sense of humour, and he's just finding his feet in the game review land. So please send him a like and a comment. He talks about Fable in more detail than I will, shares his thoughts and feelings on it, as well as giving some interesting trivia facts on the game, including the fact that Fable was originally going to be a Dreamcast game, which is something I didn't know myself. So please give my good buddy Boxing all the support you can if you feel inclined. Thanks. In 1996, a little old game called Fable was introduced to the world, which, hang on, what the fuck is this game? This isn't the Fable I'm familiar with. Hold on, let me start again. In 2004, a little old game called Fable was introduced to the world, which then grew up into a young, respectable series, before getting caught in a downward spiral and spending its young adulthood in stagnation and darkness. Just like me. I love the Fable series. Yes, even that one. But not that one, because who the hell's ever played that one? It's true that with each game it became less and less great, but even so, I still love them and have enjoyed playing the trilogy several times over now. Unlike a lot of Fable fans though, I don't have fond childhood memories of playing it as a kid, as I never had an Xbox or a PC back in the day. At that time I was more of a GameCube, Game Boy Advance kind of guy, and even if I did have an Xbox back in the day, it's kind of unlikely that I would have ever played it, as I was never really a fan of high fantasy stuff, being more of a weird sci-fi kind of kid, and only developing a taste for fantasy in my late teens. But by that time, the time of the Xbox 360, my thoughts and tastes had changed and I started to enjoy a broader horizon of genres. It was my old school friend Chris who first suggested to me that I should give Fable 2 a try, and after playing through it and loving the feel and atmosphere of the Fable world, I just had to go out and get the first Fable game to see what I'd been missing out on. I got this copy of Fable The Lost Chapters, which is the first game with additional content, including an additional extra chapter and end boss fight. Controversial opinion perhaps, but overall I have to say that I had more fun with Fable 2 over Fable 1. More so for the silly stuff you can do in Fable 2, some of the weird and slightly disturbing quests, and overall generally feeling a bit more alive and being funnier than the first, in my opinion. That said, however, though Fable 2 is my favourite in the series, I do actually think Fable 1 is definitely the better game. The first Fable has more variety in its world design, a much better story than Fable 2, with a much better villain, gameplay, soundtrack and atmosphere. I mean, the ending of Fable 2 was so lame they even made fun of it in Fable 3, and when Fable 3 can take the piss out of you and be funny about it, you know you've screwed up. Fable 1's main villain is Jack of Blades, a far more compelling and cool character than the lame duck Lord Lucian, or whatever the generic fuck this guy we barely knew from Fable 3 was. Jack of Blades is just a cool guy, you know. Another thing I really like is the soundtracks for each of the 3 Fable games, but the first one in particular is fantastic and is one of my favourite video game soundtracks. It's one of those that gets stuck in my head long after playing and I end up hearing it in my dreams. Though I never played the game as a kid, the soundtrack has a definite powerful, nostalgic feel to it. Standout tracks for me include Oakvale, Summer Fields, and of course the epic main theme. Still haven't quite got the hang of that yet. That main theme tune, by the way, was created by none other than Danny Elfman, more well known for composing the soundtracks for the Tim Burton Batman movies, as well as doing the theme song for The Simpsons, among many other great things. But the rest of the soundtrack, however, was created by Russell Shaw, who did all 3 of the main Fable games, and I for one would be very happy if they got him back to give the next Fable that authentic Fable feel. What made Fable so great was, like its name suggests, it was a Fable-like adventure, meaning that it was not a story of solid facts where each telling of the story was exactly the same. One playthrough of the game you could be a mighty hero, beloved by the citizens of Albion, a beacon of light and honour. In another playthrough of the game, you could be a demonic bastard who sows misery and chaos wherever his bloody blade slashes through the land. And then in another playthrough, you could act like a complete tool, running through the land almost completely naked, kicking chickens and insulting the neighbours.
Oi! That's disgusting.
I imagine that Fable must have been amazing back when it was first released, for that feeling of freedom and choice that it gave you. Even when I first played it in the late 2000s, it still felt very fun, acting like a total arsehole and seeing how much you could get away with before the guards came along and put you in your place. Although choice and freedom is very much a big part of the Fable games, it's still one of those games which kind of forces you to be a certain way in order for its story or main quest to work. There's still a good amount of optional quests, alternate ways to complete quests, and character customization, with clothes, armour, weapons, tattoos, haircuts, and even names, which the NPCs will call you with.
The mighty Reaper.
But you're still essentially the same character every time you play the game, with the same story to play through. Although, like I say, the story can be slightly different, depending on if you're good or bad. So there's not much in the way of role-playing as this type of character or that type of character. You can do it a little bit, but you're still pretty much on the same track regardless of how you play. In that first Fable game you can't even select gender, which would no doubt be highly criticised these days by people who care about that for some reason. You can use swords, bows or magic, or what the game calls will, to attack enemies, and some of the spells you can learn to use in particular can be quite fun and satisfying to use, though I personally find it a little cumbersome sometimes, switching spells and getting them to hit what you're actually wanting to hit at times. But I guess a lot of games are like that. There's also a few mini games that you can find around the world which you can earn a little bit of gold and prizes from, but I never really got into those very much. I appreciate the fact that they're there, but it's not really my thing. For me, I find the best and most fun way to make money is simply become an evil landlord, grabbing all the property you can get hold of by honest or nefarious means. Then you can just sit back and watch the money roll in. There's also other fun side things you can do in the world, such as trying to unlock demon doors, which require you to do certain things for them, as well as just generally mucking about, killing things and people. People are easiest. Yes, so easy to kill innocent little people. Actually, it's a little bit too easy for people to die, can be quite annoying when you're doing quests where you have to escort people through dangerous areas. While escort missions can be annoying that way, they're also extremely annoying when you happen to be playing a villainous character, because if you have a low reputation, all the NPCs will be afraid of you and just run away before you can even catch them to get quests off them or any of that nonsense. So it's not particularly rewarding to play as a evil character. And it is just one of the ways that the game kind of forces you to be that sort of chosen one hero sort of trope that is often used in video games like this. Another slight annoyance with the game is the Guildmaster, who never shuts up with his extremely useful hints.
Your bow may prove useful against the Wasp Queen.
There's a lot of fun to be had in the Fable series, and in particular Fable 1 is worth playing to experience this wonderful, slightly quirky world and story. Finding all the silly little side things you can have fun with too, as well as interacting with NPCs with silly little social things that you can do, such as farting and burping, and probably other things, but that's pretty much all I do.
Interesting choice of face.
I can remember my little brother and I were really into the Fable games back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and we'd often quote random things from the game to each other, just to be silly.
I am the original demon dog.
You cannot just super me. Super me. You must have been all my other brothers.
Something else which I found kind of fun, and is particular to people like me who played the second game first, is seeing how much Albion changed. It was almost like going back in time. I loved seeing what Bowerstone looked like before it developed into the town that it became in Fable 2, and trying to work out the geography of it. I remember spending ages walking around the town trying to work out which area exactly this was in comparison to Fable 2. And it was also cool to discover things which were referenced or hinted at in Fable 2, which I completely overlooked having no experience of the first game. Such as finding Lady Grey and looking a bit better and a lot less disgusting and corpsey like she is in Fable 2. I really wish there were more games like Fable, or just more Fable games would be nice. I find as a general rule that people who love Fable tend to be the kind of people that I like, and I wish there was more of a fan base for it, like there is with things like Elder Scrolls and other such games. I want to know more about the land of Albion and the stories behind it. I want a deeper, richer understanding of the Fable lore and the world outside of Albion. At one point in time I was so into Fable that I even made my own Fable timeline, in which I made up my own Fable games and history around the existing games, spanning from the very ancient times with the old gods and the old kingdom, up through the actual official games, and then even further beyond Fable 3, going into a more post-industrial Albion. Of course, I look back on this weird little timeline that I made many years ago, and there are definitely some ideas there which I think in retrospect are kind of lame or just stupid. Such as one Fable game idea that I had that involved a alien invasion and your hero going into space to find Avo. But what can I say, I was very young at the time and craving more Fable. I know there are a few Fable books out there which might satiate my hunger for Fable knowledge, but I don't have any of them, because books are for nerds. I mean, can you imagine being a sad little nerd who actually gets books based off a video game? What kind of loser would do that? Sadly, Fable has a bit of an unfortunate reputation attached to it. A massive pioneer of the video game industry, Sai's shadow lurking behind it. It's true that the game was a little overhyped when it first came out, and sadly the disappointment that people felt back then has haunted the series ever since. No, you can't plant an acorn and watch it grow into a tree, but that doesn't mean that Fable doesn't deliver on its promise of being a fun piece of gaming entertainment. It's such a shame that some people can't look past the steaming pile of Molyneux at the great work of art created by the hard-working people at Lionhead Studios. Peter Molyneux never lies on Wednesdays. Unfortunately, I fell victim to this hype disappointment back in 2010 with the release of Fable 3. but that's a fable for another day. Unfortunately, Fable 3 wasn't quite as great as 1 and 2, and after an obscure Kinect game, the series has dwelt in dark limbo with the likes of Half-Life 3 and Beyond Good and Evil 2 ever since. Sadly, Lionhead Studios is no more, and Fable has been given to others to handle. I'm trying to stay hopeful for Fable 4, but after a couple of weird and disappointing game trailers, which then, so far, has led to nothing, I have to say I don't have high hopes that we'll ever end up with a Fable experience like that first one ever again. But whatever happens to the series next, if anything at all, at least we still have that amazing first game to revisit and enjoy. I've only scratched the surface of all the things and all the fun you can have in the game, but if you like linear RPGs that give you a lot of side things to do and customization, and also games with a good sense of humour and slightly quirky style, I can't recommend Fable enough to you.
Ah, we all know Lady Grey does it with anyone.
Oakville's just full of crispy people.
I love it, and I only wish there was more of it. If you've never played it, there are multiple ways of getting a copy of it. You can of course try and track down an original Xbox or PC copy. If so, I would recommend getting the Lost Chapters version for the extra content over the original release. They also released an anniversary version of the game, which was released in 2014 for the PC and Xbox 360. This is pretty much the Lost Chapters but with slightly updated graphics. And on PC the anniversary version supports controllers, which the original doesn't do very well. Both the original Lost Chapters version of the game and anniversary version can be found on Steam as of recording this in September of 2024, and they have yet to remove it from the store page like they did with Fable 3 many moons ago. I think you can also get all three of the games on Xbox Series whatever that is, but I don't have one of them, so I'm not entirely sure about that. Happy late birthday wishes to you, Fable 1. Thank you to all those who made such a wonderful and endearing game. And here's hoping that the next Fable, if there is one, can live up to the same quality that the first one did. If you have any fond memories, or even bad memories of Fable 1, please do share your thoughts and feelings in the comments section. So long as it's respectable, I'd love to hear your own Fable fables. I am Swifto, kicker of chickens. Thanks for watching, and farewell.